Cetia has just been announced for her release on Wednesday, and she is going to be a very powerful archer. She's got ways to deal with basically any form of damage mitigation, so nobody can survive her damage for long, and then she has that maxed out range, and enough bulk to take 1 or 2 hits depending on how she's built, which is very different from any other archer in the game. She does, however, have a major struggle against accuracy, and we are about to get a water-oriented meta, so there are quite a few reasons why she might not be the best investment right now. Today we'll take a look at her kit, her strengths, her weaknesses, and just whether she's a good investment or not depending on your account and on your goals in the game. One of the main assets of Cetia is her range. She has as much as Frederica if she equips the right passives, which is the highest amount you can get within the game. Then her damage is really hard to mitigate. She penetrates defense, reduces defense, penetrates missile resistance, decreases fire resistance, breaks barriers, and removes re-raise. So yeah, can't really survive her damage for long. She's got a couple of ways to inflict status effects, but she is surprisingly tanky against enemy slash and magic attacks, and if you give her high faith to make her status effect more reliable, you kind of mitigate her resistance to magic attacks. So I feel like you might not want to go the status effect route. Just kill your opponents, you'll take them out more easily than if you go any other route with her. But then on the downsides, she has low accuracy, which is really an issue considering how much evasion we have in the current meta with Starlight LN9 and whatnot, and then how much more evasion is coming in the future. She's also very AP hungry. She does have ways to make up for that. One of her passives decrease her AP consumption. You could equip a diamond coat, get some acquired AP up, but overall, if you're not equipping a TMR that gives her extra AP, she will run out rather early, especially considering ranged attackers start using AP very early in the fight, so she won't have time to use 2 or 3 buffs before she meets the enemy team. Then, she's got a movement of 3 and jump of 2, and the jump of 2 is really useful for range units because if they can move around the map properly and get in the higher ground, that actually increases their range. So for every 2 more height that you have over your enemy, if you're using a bow or some very specific spear skills, you gain +1 range. It's very impactful. You also lose range if you're on a lower ground compared to your enemy, so having a high amount of jump can allow you to move the map a lot better in those scenarios. She's got a master ability, standard gives HP to fire units and fire attack to fire unit, and then a little bit of defense penetration, magic resistance for herself, which is good stats to have on a ranged attacker. Then her TMR, I don't feel that it's an incredible one, but if you do place Cetia in a team with only ranged attackers, it's going to give missile attack up to everybody while restoring a little bit of AP for herself. So quite a good one. It can only be equipped by other ranged attackers though, so definitely don't pull her for the TMR. If you have it, great, it has decent stats and an okay ability, but it's not worth going for a Crystal Warrior just for that. So let's compare her stats to some of the other ranged attackers we have in the game. Cetia has really high HP for ranged attackers. None of them bust the 3000 HP, and she's got 3300, which is pretty impressive. She also has more attack than Frederica or Winter Victoria at 486. Really decent agility at 62. It's not Frederica level, but it's not bad. And then she's got a high amount of dexterity, as we would expect. 329 is not as much as Fred, but it's still pretty high. And a really, really low luck at 208. That is part of why she will struggle with accuracy. Yes, dexterity makes up for it a little bit, but luck is a major factor in your chances to hit, so that will be a major and recurring issue for her. Then she's got decent resistances. You're looking at 30% magic resistance. That's before her buffs are applied, and then 5% slash resist, which can be increased in a couple ways. So at least it's not negative. I would love to see missile resistance in there because typically missile attackers are going to hit each other for a while unless there's a tank picking hate up, but that is how she is. Then she's got resistances to sleep and frostbite and a little bit to berserk. Not the status effects I see the most frequently, so I don't feel like that's going to be extremely impactful for her. So, somewhat tankier than the other ranged attackers and somewhat slower as well. Overall, a decent stat line. Nothing extraordinary though for a cost 100 unit. Then, when you look at her passives, it gets a little bit crazy. She has access to +3 range, so if you don't need anything else, that is a good route to go. Extra range is always good for a ranged attacker. But what I would equip in most fights is the range +2 from her main job, and then the other passive from her main job, which gives her agility, missile resistance penetration, and AP cost down. The main thing about that, she's already slow. Agility makes up for her slow speed a little bit. She has no other source of missile resistance penetration in her kit, so if you are dealing with somebody with high amounts of missile resistance, it's the only way you can deal significant damage to them. In a lot of matchups, this will be very impactful, and then all the other bonuses in that passive are good. So if you don't need the extra range from long range, I would equip this in almost every case. And then counter abilities, she has access to reflex, so no other ability matters. Since she's fairly bulky and can potentially take 2 hits depending on who the enemy is, she might have more than 1 chance to proc reflex as well, which is super good. It's like a 15% chance to just say, you're done, I win, and get the hit that finishes off the enemy. It's very, very good, and so no other passive is really worth considering for counters. Now let's finally look at her main job. It's a new job, we've never seen that before. First ability for 14 AP, decreases the enemy's attack a little bit. That is not very impactful. The attack decrease in a percentage is only from the unit's base stats, and we gain so much stats now from equipments and vision cards and espers that the base stats being decreased by 39% is not a very impactful thing. Her second buff, though, increases her own slash and magic resistance by 20% and then range by 1. It's a really, really good buff. Not an AoE one, so you might decide to turn her other AoE buffs off so that she uses this first if you need it. But this is really good for both survivability and range. It's just going to be relevant in almost every fight. Then she's got a very large AoE attack that will reduce counter chance, deal damage, and then decrease healing power. I love the fact it reduces counter chance. You're fighting an enemy with reflex, you just take that out before, and then it can't be blocked by a reduced damage counter either, so that's pretty good. And then since you decrease healing power by 40, chances of healing back are pretty low. It's not completely negating the enemy healing, but if you do catch both the healer and the tank in the same attack, they both have healing power down, and at that point the tank is not going to get healed back. And since it's such a large AoE, chances are you will be able to catch several people in that move. I think this is her main ability, it's the one you'll see the most, and it's very strong. It negates a couple things. But then she's got another option that dispels re-raise, deals damage, and has a chance to stun. Another ability with like 2 effects on top, which I think is really neat. So if your enemy has re-raise, you just use that, you kill them through it. If it's a high faith character, you have a pretty good chance of stunning them on top, and then you're just getting a pretty huge edge. She does have one AoE buff that increases single target resistance for everybody and agility for herself. I kind of wish it was agility for everybody. That would make it a great buff in my opinion. As it stands, it's decent, but in a fight where you only have time to use one buff, I would prioritize the one that gives her resistances and range up over this one. Final ability that she gets at 120 is Broken Armor. It decreases defense and then deals some damage. She doesn't have a ton of defense penetration, only 20% from her master ability, and then another 20% if you decide to equip a Platinum Bow. So I think just decreasing defense by a flat amount is very important. And then if you're targeting an enemy that has a low amount of defense, flat decrease in defense like this can actually go in the negatives, further increasing your damage instead. So it's going to be a good ability to have on in most scenarios, and I think if she's not at 120, she will not perform as well, because this is a really major way of increasing damage against squishier targets. So another good thing in her kit. And then finally, her Limit Break has the decreased fire resistance before damage and a 200% mod damage. So it's by far the hardest hitting thing in her kit. Both the mod is higher, and then the decrease of resistances that's happening right before damage makes it so that she could one-shot many people with this. No, not tanks, but if she's hitting, say, a Halloween Little Leela with this and there was no tank involved, Halloween Little Leela will die. There's nothing much she can do to survive a hit like this. So very good main job overall. Now, if we're looking at the sub-job options, I think her Crystal Warrior sub-job will not be used a lot, and if you're using it, it's really for one reason. You want the chance of Berserk, and you're fighting enemies, you're relying on the status effects, and you want the arrow that has a chance to Berserk people. It's cool, it's unique, but I don't think it's going to be used that often, because you have Sniper sub-job you can use, which is great. There is Viking sub-job. If you ever use this and make it work, let me know, but I don't think it's ever worth considering. You do get some slash attacks, but why would you want your very long-range attacker to go in melee range and start using slash moves when they could be in safety in the back? I don't know. So let's not consider that for longer, and let's take a look at the sniper job instead. First, you get aiming, which gives her extra range and 40 more defense penetration. If you do have that job equipped, you can go to 80 defense penetration with this and a platinum bow, and then you might not need her at 120 if that's the way you want to run her, because it's a really good buff. The one downside I see of this is the range up buff is redundant with her resistances up buff, so you really only want one of the two in a fight, otherwise you're kind of buffing for the same thing. The other notable abilities I like in here are one where she can increase attack in an AoE. That could be good if you're pairing her with only physical attackers, or a bunch of other rangers that are going to give her aimed fire, so she already gets the range up some other way, and then increases people's attack instead. But also the barrier break arrow, so now she also has a way to deal with enemies with barrier. You're fighting an Oberon or anybody else that puts up a barrier, you just fire that arrow there, and then you deal full damage with that attack and incoming attacks after that. So what does this look like in a build? Well, she reaches a respectable 6,000 HP, obviously not tank level, but at 6k I start seeing units survive a hit or two, especially if it's coming from a magical attack. She's got 45% magic resistance with this build before her buff, so with it, it goes to 65%, 25% slash resist again before her buff, which would take that to 45, and 19 defense, which is still decent to decrease physical incoming attacks. So really lots of options here. 97 agility. With all this, she is fairly fast, and we're not running a major agility up vision card here. We don't have the Black Rose VC or anything like that, so it could potentially go even higher. She also has almost 1150 attack, which is a very decent amount for a ranged attacker. Typically, those ranged attackers are in the area of slightly over 1000, so she's in the ballpark of a good ranged attacker in War of the Visions. Her luck, still very lacking in a build like this. If I wanted to make her accurate, I would have to swap a couple things around. I would remove the diamond coat, replace that with an Alexandrite ring. I would give the Secrets of the Heart vision card to somebody to have some extra luck for all my team. And then I would probably need another vision card that provides accuracy up. If you do own the Blades of Grass vision card for the initial Final Fantasy release, Final Fantasy Tactics release, then you can get an extra 25 accuracy for everybody. And it has a fire party ability on top. It would be great. I know not many players have that though, so it's not an option everybody owns. I know I don't. But yeah, that would be a great option to make up for her lack of accuracy if you're fighting an enemy team that has a lot of evasion. Then in terms of partners, if you own King Mont and Winter Macherie, I think you have a crazy good combination right there. Both Winter Macherie and Cetia will be firing ranged attacks from the back. Winter Macherie has Sharpshoot, she's got Barrage, and then she has very high damage Pierce attacks she can use as well. Meanwhile, King Mont is in the front, he's going to be tanking for a while, and he deals significant damage for a tank. Especially if Cetia uses her Fire Resistance Down ability, King Mont will be there just mowing enemies down as well, and that will be a crazy strong team if you're not fighting a water team or an evasion team. You could also run Lilith, who has, just like Winter Macherie, the Ranger's sub-job, but she's slower and has MR stats, so she won't be performing as well as Winter Macherie would. Another great option is Regalia Glaciela, because she has crazy damage in an AoE, she's pretty bulky, she's got all her good sides, but also she is a natural fit for the Encounter of Heroes vision card, which provides 20% slash resistances up, which is pretty important to make Cetia survive if she does get hit. That's how we have 25 on our current build. So this is it, and then if you're wondering what the other vision card I have on is, it's Brachiosaurus. It's going to be released quite likely the week afterwards, just like the Golden Araman was released alongside Joom. It is the vision card and Esper combination that will be released and tailor-made for Cetia herself. So it provides missile attack and for fire units. So this is it. I don't expect Cetia to have a major impact on the meta, mostly because water is coming. I think a lot of players that do take a look at what the JP side has released right now know that Celeste is coming as a water-oriented tank, very short while after Cetia's release, and then a couple months afterwards we're also getting Alstoria, who is the Water Crystal Warrior, and he is an incredibly powerful physical attacker. He will deal significant damage to just about anybody in his way, and while water has really good fire resistance, it's going to be tough for Cetia to have an impact against these guys. On top of that, we are getting 2 more light evasion units, Luck, who is going to be the most evaded unit we've seen so far in War of the Visions, and then Violet as well, who will be a very punishing physical attacker that has a lot of evasion. So, you know, the weaknesses of Cetia are water unit and high evasion units, and because of the timeline and what's coming in the short future, I feel like she's going to struggle. Even if you do gear her for full accuracy, then yeah, maybe she can get the hits she needs, but you're sacrificing a lot of damage and a lot of the other tools she might have for that, so at that point she won't necessarily perform as well as she would against normal enemies. So it's really a tough call to invest Viz into her right now, I think. So if you're looking for the next competitive thing, I think she's not the unit you want. If you want to change your guild battle formation and start running some new teams, you would probably be better looking at, you know, the Moor that's currently available or something different, just because she will be countered very shortly. If you're thinking in the far future, when we get another very strong fire unit, or when we get a fire unit that has guaranteed hit, like Terra maybe, then she might have a chance to shine because she will be a ranged unit, which means she won't care what the enemy meta is. She won't care if they can one-shot people. She won't care if they're resistant to missile because she penetrates that. She's got the makings of a very strong attacker that can live for a very long time, as long as the meta is not oriented towards evasion. So if we start seeing a lot of guaranteed hits for a while and evasion is getting shut down, then she will be very strong. Will she be strong immediately? I don't feel like it, she will. On my end, I'm still considering whether I'll go for her or not. I would love to use her in manual, because she's a ranged unit, and that typically gives you a lot of leeway when you're playing manually, but I'll consider it. I don't have that much Viz saved up right now, so I'm not sure I can afford her. But this is it. Let me know your thoughts. Am I underthinking her impact? Do you guys feel like maybe she'll actually see some competitive play right now? Let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.